Babalola University at Duikiti. It's obvious that our speaker is coming to us with much recognition and expertise in research. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our speaker, Dr. Oluseyi Ajayi.
Thank you very much, moderator. I welcome every one of us to this time, and it's a privilege to be invited to give this talk. It's a simple topic that I've been asked to handle, to look at the strategies for increasing your article acceptance in rated journals. Permit me just to take some few seconds to share my slides so that we can start immediately. Okay, please just give me some few minutes. Okay, please, can everyone see my slide?
I believe we can.
Okay, thank you very much. So, okay, I'm sorry, please. Let me just go back again. Let me start all over again. Okay, good, good. So we want to begin from, oh, I'm trying to control my slide. It's not responding. Okay, please. I don't know what's wrong with my slide. I need to do something. Okay, all right. So, please pardon my understand. Okay, now we go. Okay, yeah, good. So we want to look at this title together, strategies for increasing your article acceptance in rated journals. Uh, I will just be looking at this topic from the broad spectrum of the editor and the reviewers. Because to get your article accepted in top rated journals, you actually need to pass the what you call the quality check at the editorial office, at the chief editor stage, and the reviewer stage. So everything we'll be discussing today based on this title, we'll be looking at what are the basic things that the editorial office will be considering that your article must possess. What are the things that the chief editor will be looking at within your article for him to be able to pass that article to the reviewers? And what will the reviewers looking at? What are those important ingredients or items that your article must possess for the reviewers to say, yeah, this is good enough for publication in this international journal? And those will be the subjects that we'll be considering basically throughout this presentation. The first thing is to look at some questions we like to ponder. These are 4 questions that I want us to think about. First is, what are rated journals? Secondly, what is the acceptance rate? I mean, why is the acceptance rate of top journals very low? Thirdly, I want us to think about what gives journals their ratings. And fourth, we want to look at what are the preliminary steps that articles go through before they get to reviewers. These 4 different questions will be answered first, and then we'll move to the technical aspect of your article, what the reviewers will be looking at, what the chief editor wants to see, and then when it's accepted, what readers would like to see, and then we conclude. Okay, so let's look at these questions first and ask ourselves, what are rated journals? I have 4 different definitions of what I can talk about descriptions of rated journals. So these are publications that have attracted and still attracting or continuously attracting contributions from the best of the best in a particular field of specialization. For example, energy journals, the international journal, or renewable and sustainable energy journals. Or you want to look at many other different journals that exist, multiple of them. And you find that top rated journals are attracting and they're continuously attracted. they attracted and continuously attracting contributions from the best of the best across the globe. And these are also publications attracting very large number of articles per month from across the globe. One of the things that makes rated journals stand out is the number of articles that comes in every day. In a day, you can find up close to about 500 articles coming into a particular journal. And so the editorial office, they are encumbered by such large number of articles. And so it goes through an automated process to check certain things. And once those things are satisfactory, they push to the chief editor. Then the chief editor looks at it. So it becomes very, 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 very troublesome for weak articles to go through, because an article is competing with over 1,000 journals every month, or 2,000 or 3,000, depending on the attraction of that journal to people. And then you find that when your article is not strong enough, then it shuffles. And once it's sieved out, it's simply picked out and thrown away. And it returned back to the editor, says the article is not good enough or it's not acceptable in this kind of a journal. Or sometimes they recommend to you that you should publish your journal. It may be a local journal. And so authors don't like to hear such, but what are those things that makes your article sellable, makes your article interesting to readers? One of the things that you also want to know about rated journals are that these are journals that have become a very important reference material in a particular field of specialization. And also you want to also know that these publications that are described as rated journal, they have built reputation and command respect among field practitioners. Therefore, the editors, they are mindful of the fact that their journals are sought after. And therefore, they don't want to compromise quality. They don't want to compromise their reputation. And because of that, good, only strong journal, only strong articles get accepted. Let's move on and look at what gives journals their ratings. Basically, there are four important things that gives journal a rating. Number one is readership and visibility. For instance, you have some journals in the energy fields, like Applied Energy in a survey. You have Energy, the international journal. You have Renewable and Sustainable. When a volume is released today, there are so many universities globally that are subscribed to them. Those journal articles in that volume gets to the table of whomsoever is interested in reading, provided they are within the schools or institutions that are subscribed to them. Right at my desk, right here, I could just get into a survey and search any article. Today, if an article is published by survey, I get it on my table. And so you find that leadership and visibility is big to them. What gives this journal their rating? Quality of the articles over the years. Some publications have dated their first edition or first issue dates back 80 years, 50 years, 60 years, 40 years. And you find that over these years, they have quality articles. They've been publishing quality articles over the year, and therefore their rating soars. They're not another important factor that gives this journal their rating is citation count and the number of documents per year. They publish very few documents per year. However, because of the quality of each article in each volume, the citation count soars. And therefore, you have citation over the number of documents gives them the impact rating. And they have very high impact journals. And the next thing is that why is the acceptance rate of top journals very low? Two factors. High submission rate, as I mentioned earlier. Because of the high submission rate, they have limited number of articles per issue or per volume. Therefore, they prioritize quality over quantity. So the best of the best gets accepted. What are the preliminary steps that articles go through before it gets to reviewers? This is a flow chart that shows step-by-step procedure. When an article gets submitted, we shall be looking at that author submission later on. When an article gets submitted, it gets to the editorial office. The editorial office, they do what we call the editorial check. And at the stage of the editorial check, they look at the plagiarism check to look at the similarity index. If it is satisfactory, They also look at and they consider some other important vital points. They want to look at the grammar check. Is the article well written in English language if it's an English-based journal or article? I mean, a publication. Is the English okay, good enough, standard enough? They want to look at your sentence structure. Most persons do use bogus sentences, clumsy sentences, and all of that. Don't want such. They don't want such. If your sentence is more than 2 or 3 lines, they send it back to you that your sentences are clumsy. You have to revise them. You have to break long sentences to two or more, and all of that. So once the editorial check does their work, do their work, then this, if it is satisfactory, it goes to the chief editor. If it is not satisfactory, it goes back to the author. Sometimes it is outrightly rejected, or sometimes they ask the author to revise their article in line with some of the highlighted points, which they will send to the authors. If those points are too many, then they reject the article right at the editorial office. But once it passes the editorial check, it gets to the chief editor. The chief editor does what they call a quality check again. There are two levels of quality. Later we shall look at it, but for the chief editor, you have the measure of quality at the level 1. If it is poor, it returns back to the author and it says reject. If it is good enough, probably the chief editor sees that the article is good enough and is making at least significant contribution to knowledge, is contacts reviewers, and then the article goes to review, and then the review will be in progress. So let's look at what are those measure of quality. As I said, the level 1, the chief editor level, and the level 2, the reviewer's technical check level. And then we pick each one after the other. Let's look at the quality check at level 1. What would the chief editor be looking at? The chief editor will start from the title. He would consider the title. What is the title saying? How is the title structured? What is the title communicating? We shall look at title an article later on. What should be the components of your title? What should your title exhibit later on? Then the second thing, the editor considers the abstract. It wants to determine the degree of likely contribution to knowledge. And so there are certain components that your abstract, a good abstract must showcase. There are basically 5 components. When we get there, we shall look at it. Then the next thing that the editor is considering your literature review, the depth of your literature review, and how current at your citations. If your citations read something like 1960, 1970, 1980, 1990s, early 2000, most likely the editor will conclude that there are no new things, no new information within the article because all your citations are within the year 2014, 2013, 2012, 2011, 1990s, and all of that. The article outrightly is rejected. For instance, it just be considered no new information. Then, so you want to look at your citations and how you argue out your point. The research hypothesis must be very clear. The research argument must bring out the gaps in existing literature, in existing knowledge. And how are you trying to resolve those gaps? And then finally, the editor looks at the title. Let me just summarize. The editor looks at the title, consider the abstract, just scans through your literature review, looks at a little of your methodology, but focuses on the conclusion. Is the conclusion able to answer the title? How concise is the conclusion? All of this, the editor has just few minutes, 1 or 2 minutes to look at this because the editor is trained over the years to see these components. Once he stares at the title, he sees what he wants. Once he stares at your scan through your literature or your introduction, he knows whether it is weak, whether it is strong, and all of these decisions will be made within just 2 to 3 or 5 minutes. And so you find that even if your article is good enough, but the components that should be there are not there, it's rejected. It will be rejected based on quality, and it's subject to the editor's opinion. And once it says reject, no question mark. Then the next thing is the quality check 2, the second level. That this is at the level of the reviewers. The same thing the editors will have checked, the reviewers will also look at. They look at the title, they look at the abstract, they look at the literature survey or the gaps in existing knowledge, and then they consider the measure of the degree of contribution that article is making to knowledge. You consider your results and discussion. How good is it? and then they look at your methodology. How transparent is the methodology? We shall look at this one after the other. So the first thing we pick is the title. Let's go ahead and look at it. The title. What are the important components the title must exhibit? Number one, your title must show an actionable cause. It must show that the work is done. It must appeal to the readers that something significant has been done. Secondly, it must showcase that a research objective was met. Just at the title, must showcase that a research objective must be met, has been met. Thirdly, the title must be trendy. It must be something that is, forming the body of knowledge currently. It must be something that persons are looking at. For example, everywhere now globally, researchers are looking at COVID-19, the implication of COVID-19 to so many things. So when you create a title around that, it's most likely going to be accepted. Even in engineering field, even in energy, every field has a subject that is trending. And if your article falls within and majorly to be judged by your introduction, how deep and how current are your citations. And then number four is that is a title specific. Let's take an example. Let's look at some example of a title. Look at these are four basic titles. We look at the top, the title on the top of your screen. Impact of HCl on aluminum. Take a while and take 3 seconds to look at that title. Impact of HCl, hydrochloric acid, on aluminum. This title is very vague. What impact are you looking at? Are you looking at the chemical action? What are you actually interested in? What kind of aluminum? Oh, HCl, hydrochloric acid. What concentration are you considering? Is it low concentration? Is it high concentration? If it is high concentration, what degree of concentration are you thinking about? So you find out that that first topic is very vague. Will not pass at the will not pass the table of the chief editor. Will return it and says reject. Let's look at the second title at your lower right hand side. Investigation of the corrosive impact of HCl on aluminum. This topic, this title is better than the first, but a little fake. Okay, right now the interest of the authors is to investigate corrosive impact. Okay, the kind of impact of HCl is corrosion. So they are interested in corrosion. Okay, how hydrochloric acid corrodes aluminum. But what concentration are they talking about? So in the measure of specificity, this title fails because there are several different concentrations you can look at. And the moment you change the concentration, then the data response differs, changes. Once it's 1 mole HCl, data response will be displayed in a certain way. When it is 2 mole, it will be different. And then what type of aluminum? There are different series of aluminum, and each series of aluminum will respond differently to catalytic action or to chemical action or whatever action you are looking at. Let's look at the fourth title, investigation of the corrosive impact of 2 mole HCl on 6061 aluminum. This is a very specific title. It carries an objective. What the authors are interested in communicating to readers is the effect of 2 mole hydrochloric acid on this particular type of aluminum, 6061 aluminum. And what are they looking at? Corrosion. So the data information will be all about corrosive impact. And therefore, it is a specific title, one. It is trendy to the field of study because persons are still using, so many industries are still using 6061 aluminum. It's a structural metal for so many engagements. And so when you are building in an acidic environment, you want to be able to know what will be the impact of hydrochloric acid of that particular molarity on that type of metal. So it is specific, it is trendy for the field, it shows an objective is met, and it exhibits that there is an action that has taken place. What I'm looking at, the first topic, it shows an actionable cause. It shows that an action has been carried out, a study has been carried out. But let's look at the fourth title. It says it's just a repetition of the third one, but with an additional information. Investigation of the corrosive impact of 2 mole hydrochloric acid on 6061 aluminum using particle swarm optimization. At this level, what the authors are interested in is to point the attention of readers to that methodology. Possibly, lots of articles may have investigated corrosion of 2 mole or different concentration of HCl on different kind of aluminum or 6061 aluminum, but maybe many of the existing knowledge has not or have not uh, concentrated or focused on particle swarm optimization because of the fluctuations of the data, because it is time series data, and therefore you want to optimize the data to be able to get certain significant signature of the chemical action of 2 mole HCl on that particular aluminum, and therefore you are using particle swarm optimization. So the focus of the readers, the focus of the chief editor and the reviewers, you have driven their focus from this, from the chemical action to the methodology. And therefore, what you are bringing to the table is clear, is the methodology. And therefore, on that basis, the argument is clear. And then the literature review should support that. Whereas that means in your literature review, you'll be looking at different optimization procedure and how they have applied it. And probably you want to say, because none has been applied to this field, you are interested in this, doing this. And what are the advantages of if you have done that? What are the disadvantages of previous methodologies? Which particle swarm optimization is capable enough to resolve? Once you have your title with these components, as it's exhibited and as I've explained, you find that it's likely the percentage of it passing through the first quality check is higher. Then the next thing is your abstract. The abstract must contain these four basic four basic components. First thing is the basic aim of the study. Picking the abstract, the editor and the reviewers must be able to see what is the basic aim of this study. Secondly, you want to see a brief statement of your methodology. How did you carry it out? The important aspect of the methodology should be exhibited right in the abstract. Thirdly, you want to see the significant results. The significant results. Those results, not just all of the results, but the significant results that contributes to knowledge. Then the next thing, you want to look at the conclusion and possible contribution to knowledge. And maybe you want to add, how has this, how is this study different from other studies? Once this important information are exhibited in your abstract, then passes the quality check. The next thing you want to also consider after that, oops, I can't see the top of my slide. Let me just, there is something there which I am not able to see. It's talking about quality check 2. After the policy, we have the title, we have looked at the title, the example, the abstract, the important aspect of the abstract, then the methodology. Now, that part is talking about the methodology. What are the basic expectations of the methodology? Because for the reviewers, there are certain level of expectation what your methodology should show. Number one, how new is the methodology? Rated journals are not there to reinvent the wheels. They're not just there to publish anything. They don't want to publish what is already known. They want to bring new information to readers. So how new is the methodology? If your methodology is a standard approach, for example, you are using a T statistic or an F statistics, or you are using YBO, those are standard statistics, statistical distribution, and therefore that is not new. But then, though, despite the fact that you are using standard approach, you must showcase what is new. Is it that these statistics has never been used to analyze this kind of data before, and therefore you are trying to do that now? Or what? How transparent, therefore, is your application procedure? You want to also see what is your application procedure. And then the next thing, justification for selection of materials or procedure. And then the software you are using. And Are those software the latest in the field of study? Then the instrumentation. How modern or old? What is the level of sophistication? For instance, what scanning electron microscope would do is different from what an optical microscope would do. Even though even though optical microscope will be able to see the surface, scanning electron microscope is better. The level of sophistication, the data exhibition, the data distribution, and all of that. So you see more with SEM than OPM. And therefore, top-rated journals want you to use the modern instruments and the sophisticated instrument. Okay, let's quickly move on because of time. What are the expectation, the basic expectation of our results and discussion? One of it is that it must be clearly presented. Articulate discussion of results. That can never be compromised. How does the result compare to those of existing body of knowledge? Nothing is new. You are There's nothing new. Whatever you are doing now can be compared to something that exists. So is it in agreement or is it slightly modifying it? You need to justify. How does your result compare to those of existing body of knowledge? Should be showcased, should be clear from the way you discuss. How is the result validated? And then what are the basic inferences or implication of the results? Most times I have reviewed articles and I see that the authors just observe and report. They tell us what is clear from the data. But I'm not interested in knowing what is clear from the data. I'm interested in seeing what are the inferences I can draw from the data. What are the implications of this result on the body of knowledge? That is what promotes scholarship. Your methodology should promote originality and your discussion should promote originality, should promote scholarship. You should talk to your data. Data is data. 4 is 4, 5 is 5. But what is 5 saying in this kind of work? What is 7 saying in this kind of result? And that is what we are interested in. Speak to the data, communicate with data, let us know how it extends the body of knowledge in your research. With that, then if we go through the the uh, the next, let's look at the next thing, the paper's introductory section, the content and the focus. Well, every journal article has basic components. After the title, the abstract, then you get to the introduction. The introduction is a body that includes both an introductory uh, part and also a deep literature set. So there are basic components. Content of it includes the description and or definition of the subject matter. Secondly, the quality literature review. Thirdly, we want to look at the arguments on the shortcomings of the existing body of knowledge as regards the study aid. The fourth thing is that you want to look at the gap in existing body of knowledge. The arguments that you have introduced should be such that it introduces gaps in knowledge, and therefore the gaps in knowledge will lead to your research hypothesis or your research objectives, or the creation of certain research questions which will bother the readers. Okay, once you are able to ascertain and establish those things, then your article has passed the literature survey check. One of the things that you must therefore note is that it must be deep and relevant to the subject matter. The currency should be as recent as possible. For instance, it must be within the last 5 years. Your literature citations, your references should be within the last 5 years. This is 2011. We're talking about 2016, 2017. But the newer, the better. The older, it will turn back. Okay, the next thing is the grading. How you grade the papers, the criteria for grading. Number one is the level of contribution to knowledge. Number two, the relevance to international scientific community. Later, there are articles that have been turned back. For instance, you are doing a paper, and I'm in Nigeria right now, and I'm located in Ota, in Nigeria, and I'm looking at the wind energy situation, and I say in a particular site in Ota. International community, scientific community, that is not relevant to them. For that article or that study to gain international relevance, you may want to consider more than one site, maybe a particular site in Ota, a particular site in Lagos, a particular site in Kano, a particular. So it becomes a regional study. then it appeals to international scientific committee. But if it is too localized, if your work is too localized, then trouble to return. Your article or your study must be relevant to international scientific community if it must be accepted in rated journals. Number three is originality. Everybody wants to showcase what is the contribution of that particular article to knowledge. And once editors can see that, the reviewers can see that, then they can grade it highly. Number four is transparency. In the way your methodology is laid out, are there information you were trying to hide, or are there things that were shabbily done and then you were manipulating? Once they see that, it will turn back. So transparency is key. Then clearly defined objective or research hypothesis must be clear. Clear presentation of result, articulate discussion of your result, and then concise conclusion. These six or seven important points are what we use in grading an article before it's accepted in rated journals. Now let's look at what about the conclusion? What do we expect? Very important. It is very important. It should summarize the entire work, should showcase the importance of the study and its contribution to knowledge, and should highlight areas for further study and also possible limitation of the study. One thing I must say here is that when you write your conclusion should be an extended abstract. Yeah, abstract should consist of 4 or 5 basic components, but your conclusion must be an extension of that. It should be an extension of the abstract. It should be number one, it should include the four or five things that abstract should include. Five. Additionally, it should include recommendation for further studies if there are any, or limitation that study experienced that has limited further study or maybe certain information. For example, probably I am looking at solar radiation, how it affects certain things. And in Nigeria, between December and March is a dry season. And so you have more of the solar incidents, solar insolation coming in. And then, but the kind of study I've carried out, because of time limit and whatever, my timing is between July and October. Those are rainy times. And so we have intensive cloud cover. And so rather than having direct solar radiation, I will have dispersed solar radiation. And because of the intensity of the cloud coverage, then my data may not be able to speak to when it is dry season. So that's a limitation because of the timing of data. So if it is clear, then the judgment of the article will be subject to the timing rather than looking at the broad scope and therefore rejecting the paper for not saying enough. So probably you have certain limitations that have limited or that have hindered your study from getting more data or getting more information or certain information. You need to say such so that when the reviewers are taking decisions on what should be and is not, then they will consider that and be able to say, okay, based on this, it should pass. And then you recommend for further studies. Once this is done, then probably it may go through. Before article is submitted, there are certain things you must know. The importance of the journal scope. Every journal have their own. Every journal has their own scope. What they are interested in, the kind of articles they want, the areas of mechanical engineering, the areas of medical science, the areas of whatever area or field of study that journal is focused on. So if a journal accepts failure-based studies and you are bringing solar radiation data, they will not accept it. So the first thing is that either before you write your article, or after you have written your article, before you submit to any journal, check the journal scope, the scope of the journal. Then the next thing is to check the guide to authors. Every journal has a template they want you to follow. Some will say that your data should be, your tables and figures should be analyzed or put alongside your discussion. Some have different outlook. Therefore, you need to consult the guide to authors of individual journal. And then your editorial grammar or language, very important. You don't use critical language, for instance. you are doing a study and you are looking at the poverty, the incidence of poverty in a particular place, and you are saying that because of this, the government is not doing enough, and so the community is stricken, is poverty stricken. That's a judgment. For you to publish your article in top-rated journals, language is very important. Your language must not be critical. Your opinion must not be hard. Let your data do the talking. For instance, if in the grading of your data, it shows that if the data falls between scale 2 to 4, it's critical, critically bad. 5 to 7, bad. 10 to this, excellent. Let your data do the talking. Don't abandon the data and begin to criticize. It will be returned for language, for use of language. And therefore, you focus on the data, even if what you are seeing, and based on your interviews, the people have said the government is not doing enough, the government is bad, that is done, or the erosion and this, or whatever it be the situation, let it not be hard. Unless your data is saying it, let your data do the talking. Your voice must not be heard. And these are certain things, pitfalls. Some people just talk in their articles and their opinion, they abandon the data and they make their opinion known, it will be returned, it will be rejected for language issues. And then in grammar, no sentence should be more than 2 or 3 lines. 2 lines, 2 line sentences are always the best. And then you must use efficient sentences. Don't just use ambiguous sentences and sentences that are clumsy. Use efficient sentences, simple sentences, one small sentence, 2 line sentences, but says a lot. That's what sells. That's what goes through. Let's finally, as we go to the end of this presentation, your contribution to knowledge and the attached decision. Look at these 4 decisions. High level contribution, that is, it is novel, it is highly relevant to the field or scope of the journal, it will be accepted. The article will be accepted. If the article has made good contribution, that means sufficiently new information. That's the judgment that's attached to that. Sufficiently new information has been presented by your article, then it will be accepted. But if it is minimal contribution, it will be rejected. Or local contribution, like I said, you just look at a local site in Okta and you are sending that paper to International Journal of Energy, it will be rejected because those in the US are not interested in what happens in Okta. They are looking at they want regional signature of your wind energy map so that investors come in can say, okay, in Nigeria, looking at geographical locations, this is good here, this is good there. But just pick a particular site in a local site, it will be rejected for local contribution. And they will advise you to go and publish it in the Nigerian journal that is focused on that scope. Okay, so local contribution or local relevance, it will be rejected. So you want to target the high level contribution, novelty, or highly relevant, or you want to target the good contribution, sufficiently new information for your article to be accepted. In conclusion, writing a good article for publication in a written journal is the responsibility of the author. Some important things that you should be considering include, but they are not limited to this following: must be good and focus. It must showcase good and focused title, must be attractive and motivating. I mean, the abstract must be attractive and motivating. When you read the abstract, your abstract, it should be such that pushes the readers to want to look at, consider the article. But when your abstract is boring, we cannot judge if there will be contribution to knowledge in it. We can't see the methodology and all of that. It's born, they throw it aside, and so it will not be accepted. Now, the literature search must be deep and very deep. And then your methodology must be clear and transparent. And then you want your result and discussion to be original and demonstrate scholarship. And then your conclusion should be very concise. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oluseyi Ajayi, for this. Okay, yeah, I got some questions here from our listeners. The first question is: how can I obtain Scopus and Web of Science Index journals? From Yasin Ahmed.
Okay. If I'm to answer that, you can just, there are so many of Scopus index journals available. But if you Google, first of all, you need to know the field you are looking at. What is the field of study? Your article is within what field? Secondly, when you located the field, you can Google journals in energy, journals in this. Look at the particular field. Or you go to Elsevier. I'm not trying to sell any particular journal. It's just because of the question. You can look at Elsevier. You can look at Springer. You can look at Taylor and Francis. You can look at Wiley. Those are top-rated journals. All of their publications are top-rated. And then once you get there, Google it and then look at their ratings. Look at the journal ratings. You will see, are they listed in ISI? Are they listed in Scopus? It's clear. It will be there. So those are one way. And then you can look at the Schimago. Any journal in Scopus has Schimago rating. So once that journal has a Schimago rating, that means it is indexed in Scopus. The ones that have impact factor shows that it is indexed in Thomson Reuters, ISI. So those are one of the ways by which through which you can know that. Any question? Any other one?
Thank you, Doctor. There's another one here. Muji Sola is asking, please clearly shed more light on research hypothesis.
Okay. Well, research hypotheses are basically what you are considering for your work. For instance, um, let me give a picture of something. Okay, ah, how can I make it very easy? Okay, let's look at a light bulb, for instance. If you connect that bulb to electricity and you turn on the switch, normally the bulb is okay, it should give light. But you have designed a bulb, for instance, that will not only give light, but when it is on, for instance, it will give light. Then it could decipher. I'm only giving a very vague example. It will decipher if the voltage is good enough, if the voltage is bad, it will decipher. And so when the light bulb, when the switch is turned on, the light rates or grades the voltage. And if the voltage is good enough, it beeps. If the voltage is falling, that is, could damage the bulb, it beeps in a way. Now, you know that that is different from every other bulb that exists, every other bulb that exists. And therefore, your research hypothesis there can be to be able to look at bulbs, I mean, artificial intelligence, how smart your bulb is. And you want to ask certain questions, certain discussions. You put a discussion around it, and therefore you begin to make arguments around bulbs. Ah, I wish I can picture your field and therefore be able to explain to you. But now, what I'm trying to say there is the hypothesis, the research questions you are trying to resolve or research contributions you are trying to make, then you tie up an argument around it. That argument you tie up around it is an hypothesis. An hypothesis is a question that you are interested in resolving. And therefore, you now say, if the switch is on, this bulb will not light. If the switch is on, this bulb will not light. First is that you want the bulb to light, and that is what you have done. If your research hypothesis says that this bulb will not light, then you search it out by doing the research and then put on the switch. If your hypothesis shows that when you switch on and your result shows that it did not light, then you have met the original, the real null hypothesis. But if it lights, then the opposite is true. The other hypothesis is true. The alternative is true, that it will light. All of that. I hope I am able to explain it to you, but your hypothesis is basically the research idea that you are trying to resolve. That research idea that has prompted you into the lab, into that study. That is the hypothesis that that article is focused upon, which is around the objective. Okay?
Thank you very much, Doctor. Eri Kuswoyo is also asking, will you please tell me more about theoretical framework and what
Mm.
are the Where should I explain it?
Okay, good. Well, theoretical framework. In an article, there is no special section devoted to theoretical framework. I know you must be in the social sciences. The social science fields are the ones that deals with theoretical framework. However, in a journal article, there is no special section devoted to theoretical framework. However, you merge your theoretical framework with your introduction. So the introduction section can be sectionalized into certain headings. First of all, your introduction will capture the definitions, the basic definition of the subject matter. You situate the research within the subject matter and in your introduction. Then, secondly, you go to the literature search, looking at what has been done and what should be, what are the gaps. Then, thirdly, you now look at the theoretical framework where the argument is presented, the equations, the formula, whatever, what others have done, the equations that people have used, everything. So everything is situated within the body of the introduction. So you must be smart in the way you do it, and there's an efficient way you're doing it. You can devote paragraphs, paragraphs to your discussion, whereas you follow what you call the inverted triangle. If you know that, I developed that to teach my students. Inverted triangle, where the flat end is generalities, and then you come gradually down to the specific issues that relate to your work. So I hope I've answered that.
Thank you, Doctor. Um, Adefunke is also asking that you spoke about the likely rejection of an article with old references.
Yeah.
What can be done in a case where the available references are old, possibly because of shift in research interest over the years?
Hmm. Once there's a shift in research interest, that means that that article will have to face the trouble of trend, because top-rated journals are only looking for questions that are bothering the research body right now. They are not looking at reinventing the wheels. They are only looking at what is trending, what people are looking at, researches that are attracting grants, researches that are attracting fellowships. That's what they want to publish. That's what they're looking for. So if the references within the field of interest, within your scope of interest is old, probably that can be significantly pointing to that research is outdated. What you are looking for is outdated. However, no matter how old references are, there are newer ones in every field. There are somebody that has said something about that thing. So you need to search more, and then you will find it. Otherwise, I don't know how you want to convince. Moderator.
All right. Thank you very much. I think you have answered all the questions I have here with me at the moment. Let me look through. Uh, okay. I see some participants are asking about recording for the presentation, the soft copy. Please, uh, all those who want the recording and the soft copy, please, you should contact Labingate at this email info@labingate.com. Just send them an email, tell them you want the soft copy and the recording, make your request, they will get back to you. They will get in
Okay.
touch to you.
Okay. Moderator, can I
Yeah.
just
All right.
somebody is asking a question. Can you provide a list of peer-reviewed journals or a site that provide them to send our papers to? Well, one is if you Google DHET, that's in Department of Higher Education and Technology also in South Africa. They have a list of a compendium of journals that the government is interested in sponsoring, and all of them are ISI and Scopus listed. So just Google that, and you see their Excel sheet will come out. Then you can go to Scopus, I think Google Scopus, Scopus. Now, when you get to the site of Scopus, you will see their sources. You can search for sources, and you can use different name, energy. When you put keywords energy, so many journals in energy will appear. you put keywords, failure analysis, so many of it will appear and all of that. And then you could also search for uh, ISI rated journals. Google them. These things, you will see a list of so many of them. And then you can then go ahead from there. I know LabingGate will not allow me to sell products, so I'm not supposed to be telling you about a particular journal, because it will amount to me marketing for those journals. Okay. A survey is not available in Nigeria. Yes, but you could find them on Google. They will not just open, the articles will not open to you, but the site will open to you. But you could contact some persons in different schools who could help you download. For example, Covenant University is subscribed to a survey, and maybe, I don't know if some schools are also subscribed to it. Uh, you can also find schools in South Africa, yes, schools I know. Majority of the schools in the US, they have subscription to Springer, Survey, Taylor and Francis, and all of that. All schools in South Africa, or majorly most schools in South Africa, are subscribed to all of the survey database, all of Thomson Reuters and ISI database, Springer, Taylor and Francis, survey. So all you need to do is to collaborate with those in those schools. Covenant University in Nigeria, collaborate with anybody you know from there, or you collaborate with anybody from schools in South Africa. I think some persons are hooked up to this presentation from South Africa, from different places. You could look through the list and contact them. Then you collaborate. They will help you, because most of the schools, I know of TUT, I know of the University of Johannesburg, I know of University of Pretoria, I know of this school. Uh, what's the name of this school? Stellenbosch. They are all subscribed to all of these databases, and so they you can, if you collaborate with any one of them in those schools, they will assist you.
Thank you so much. I see that a lot more people are sending in more questions. But unfortunately we are limited by time.
Okay.
And
Please,
so
can I quickly answer this question? Somebody said
okay, please go ahead.
any good journals that are published for free. All of these top rated journals publish for free. All of those journals that ask for many of them are predatory or low rated journals. Not many of them. I'm not saying all, but most or some. Let me not just be exaggerating. But top rated journals are free. You just go for closed access. If you go for open access, then you have to pay. You have to pay, and you pay heavily. But all survey journals, most of them, if once you opt for closed access, it's free. All Springer journals, most of them, 90% of them, closed access. Once you opt for closed access, it's free of charge. But even though they are closed access, because of the subscription to them, once your article is published, everybody sees it. So even it competes, they are heavily cited, even more than the open access journal. So don't open access is good, but because of limitation in funds, you can go for closed access. Top rated journals are they publish free for free. Yeah, so I think I answered that question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I see one other question coming in. Possible to have something like a CV? Oh, okay, I think that is answered, right?
Yeah, it's asking if you can have that kind of journal body in Nigerian
Okay.
version. Nothing is impossible. But I don't know the organization that want to do that. Maybe Lab Game want to start journals that over the years, because a survey has been there for more than 50 years. And so they have built reputation for so many years. So any that is starting in Nigeria today has a long way to go.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ajayi.
So somebody saying free as how, when the institution has already subscribed? Yes, it is free to the authors. If I'm sending any paper to an survey, yeah, the institutions may have subscribed, but it's free for me. I'm not paying to publish. I'm not paying. That's what I meant. It may not, nothing is free. Some persons have subscribed to it, but I'm saying it is free for the authors. They are not paying to publish. That's what I'm saying. Thank you. Okay, I think I want to
Thank you so
stay
much,
here.
Dr. Ajayi.
Okay.
We appreciate all of your insightful contributions. Um, I will quickly make an announcement that you are all invited to the International Conference on Sustainable Engineering and Materials Development 2021. It will be held virtually July 28 to 30, 2021. So all your submitted manuscripts will go through double-blind peer review process. The conference proceedings will be published in a Scopus indexed outlet. You can find more details on Labigate's site. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Bumi Abioye for the closing remark. Dr. Bumi Abioye, please.
Thank you very much, sir. On behalf of Lab Ingate and the Webinar Planning Committee, I say a big thank you to our speaker, the erudite and prolific Professor Oluseyi Ajayi, for the highly educative presentation. You have indeed demystified the heart of writing scholarly articles that will be acceptable in high-rated journals. And I am sure we all greatly learned from the session. I would also like to say a big thank you to the moderator of today's webinar, Mr. Toby Sanusi. Thank you very much, sir. And to every participant, we say a big thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to attend this webinar. Your presence indeed made this webinar a great success. And we would love to hear back from you. We've posted the link to the survey. Kindly fill the survey. It's going to take just 1 to 2 minutes. Your feedback means so much to you. And I would like to remind us of the upcoming virtual international conference on sustainable engineering and materials development. And it's coming up July 28th to 30th, 2021. More details can be found on our website, and an email will be sent to you shortly with the conference poster. And in case you need research services such as consultation, training, mentoring, laboratory access, equipment access, manuscripts review, research resources, and analysis, please feel free to contact LabIngate at info@labingate.com. It's a great pleasure to have you all in this webinar. And on this note, I will be ending this meeting. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye.